Hi, Mark from Enchantment of Eternity here to talk about the big news that dropped a few days ago about how The Winds of Winter will not be released before Season 6 of Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin wrote a blog about it in his Not a Blog. I'll post a link to that in the description below. In it, he stated explicitly that the sixth book in his Song of Ice and Fire series, The Winds of Winter, will definitely not be released before Season 6. He said it would take at least 3 months after he finished the book before it would be available to the public. He talked about how that time is usually longer, but the publisher worked out a system so that they could try to get it out as fast as possible, as Martin's main goal was to get The Winds of Winter out before Season 6 aired. However, as he explains, he has not finished the book yet and still has a ways to go. He wouldn't commit to a specific deadline, as he said deadlines are the death of him. So he just said it will be done when it's done, but also stated it would be at least several months away. He decided he didn't want to rush it in order to meet a deadline, therefore he definitely won't have it ready before Season 6. Now, reading the tone of this blog, it made me feel really bad for him, as he was being really hard on himself, saying things like, I failed you all, but mostly I failed myself. I just wanted to give him a big hug and be like, don't worry about it, we understand. I mean, seriously though, I do think he was being too hard on himself, as desperate as many people are to get the source material before the adaptation comes out, and I can certainly understand why. You can't rush perfection. I mean, I read some comments saying things like, oh, he wants us to feel sorry for him, but I don't, and screw you, George, and things like that. And in my humble little opinion, these people are not only being inconsiderate, but also spoiled brats as well. I mean, seriously, he created this amazing fictional world that is so intricate with tons of rich characters, unique settings and countries and worlds that is just such an achievement. And The Winds of Winter is going to be over 1,000 pages of great storytelling, and you're getting on his back because he's taking too long. Seriously, you're spoiled. You're lucky to be blessed with such an amazing stories from him. Yes, I get it. It sucks that the adaptation is going to spoil his original work, but he tried his best. Get off his frickin' back. George did address the question of spoilers, and I'll quote what he wrote. So, when you ask me, will the show spoil the books, all I can do is say yes and no, and mumble once again about the butterfly effect. Those pretty little butterflies have grown into mighty dragons. Some of the spoilers you may encounter in Season 6 may not be spoilers at all, because the show and the books have diverged and will continue to do so. So basically, when a big event occurs in Season 6 that has not happened in the books yet, this either could be a spoiler from Winds of Winter, or it could be show original material that Dan and Dave created, and we really have no way of telling the difference. Unless one of them specifically mentions it in an Inside the Episode featurette. But last time they did that, people's heads exploded, so I don't think they'll be doing that again. So we already have an example of this with Stannis' death at the end of Season 5. And by the way, George confirmed in this very same blog that Stannis is indeed dead in the show, so I don't want to hear any of this Stannis truth or nonsense. Anyway, Stannis' death in Season 5 hasn't occurred in the book. So the question is this a Winds of Winter spoiler, or is this show created material that won't happen in the books at all? Even if it did happen in the books, it obviously wouldn't happen in the same way, because in the novels, Theon and Jane Poole had already escaped from Winterfell and made their way to Stannis' camp while he is still alive and well, whereas in the show, Theon and Sansa didn't escape Winterfell until after Stannis' death. So it's hard to say. I personally believe it will happen in the books eventually, but that's just a guess. I don't know this for certain. So in Season 6, it's going to be riddled with moments like this. For example, if Cersei got her head chopped off by Loras in season 6, people would be wondering if that means it will happen in the books, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe Cersei makes it to the end of the Winds of Winter alive and well. Not that I think Cersei's going to get her head chopped off by Loras, I was just throwing an example out there. Point is, there may be cases where something happens, people believe it's a spoiler, but when the Winds of Winter comes out, it may turn out it wasn't a spoiler at all and something entirely different happens. There's simply no way of knowing, and in that way I'm perfectly fine with it. Winds of Winter will be different enough from season 6 with a lot of viewpoint characters that don't even exist in the show that I'm going to enjoy it just fine. Even if there may be a few major beats that were given away by season 6, for example, this Battle of Bastards that we're already hearing about and Jon Snow's resurrection, it may turn out the same thing happens in the books, and if it does, I'll be fine with that, because there's no way of knowing what is and isn't a spoiler. Even the spoilers will still come as a surprise of sorts, because you weren't sure if they were actually spoilers or not, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that's just the way I look at it. I understand people who very much prefer the books, not wanting to watch the show at all because they'd rather experience this material in the novels first, and that's fine. I can understand that. But to those people, I say, good luck trying to avoid spoilers from the show on social media and other outlets. And I don't mean good luck in a smart-ass sarcastic way, I mean seriously, good luck. I hope you do manage to avoid hearing about the major events that happened in season 6, because that will be quite a task. For example, I think there are very few people who haven't heard of Jon Snow's death at the end of season 5, regardless of whether or not they've seen season 5. However, it can be done, because I've heard some people who wait until the Blu-ray is released before watching the next season, and they tend to avoid spoilers, but it can't be easy. Because my first love was the show, part of me is tickled that in season 6 the tables will be turned and we won't have like smug book readers being like, ooh, I knew this was going to happen years ago. Although there's still a few moments from book 4 and 5 where it will be like that, but not very many. So I think it's going to be a welcome change in pace and a new experience. So me personally, I'm fine with that, and personally part of me is kind of glad the show won't be spoiled for me and I can watch it without knowing what will happen, but that's just me. Also, I have to say I'm really not that surprised. I was hoping he would have it out before season 6, but I highly doubted that it would happen. Every once in a while I'd hear a rumor that would get my hopes up, but all in all I'm not surprised by this announcement. George even talked a bit about this in his blog, saying he's seen adaptations before reading the source material himself, and he's always had a good time with both versions, although he does admit this situation is kind of unprecedented where the adaptation is released before the source material. But as he said, there's no way around this, and this was inevitably going to happen eventually when the show started covering material from the final book. It just so happens that it's going to start a bit earlier. Now, I have to say that I'm totally against the conspiracy theories that say George is lying or exaggerating and it's still possible that The Winds of Winter will be released before season 6. I think that's just denial and wishful thinking. I think he's speaking plain and honestly here. This isn't a hoax or a prank. I take him at face value when he says this. And I'm also against the thought that Dan and Dave will purposely withhold information to keep it from spoiling the books. I'm sorry, but their goal first and foremost is the same as George's goal, and that's to tell a good story. And I don't think they're going to hold back or let people's fears of being spoiled interfere with that. For example, I've seen a number of people say D&D won't reveal R plus L equals J because George hasn't revealed it yet and they don't want to spoil the books. But personally, I don't think that's a consideration for them. They'll reveal it when they think it's right for their story to reveal it. Whether that be season 6 or 7 will depend more on what they think is best for their story, not whether or not George has revealed this in the books yet. So I do think it is very likely we may get a few whoppers like that in season 6 that are almost certainly book spoilers, but that's just how it is. As I quoted in another video, Dan and Dave have said in the past that it's unfortunate that the show will spoil the books, but that's just the way it is because the show must go on. So, while I too am a bit disappointed, I'll have to wait longer for The Winds of Winter because believe you me, I was so looking forward to reading this book. I understand George's dilemma, and frankly, I don't think he should be so hard on himself. It's his material, and readers should count themselves lucky that they get it at all. Because after all, you can't rush perfection, and although I do think Dan and Dave are good storytellers, they are ultimately just building off of what George has created. George is the mastermind, the man behind it all, so I say let him take as long as he needs to get it right. So that's it for my video on The Winds of Winter. Be sure to check out my channel for many more Game of Thrones videos, as I will try to release at least one a week. And if you want to show your support for my channel, please check out my original short film, Life of Enchantment, which I just released on my channel. Check it out, give it a like, would help me a lot. And be sure to subscribe for more Game of Thrones videos, and thanks a lot for watching.